Hello everyone, Morris back here, and today we have the pre-season 5 balance changes for Axie Infinity Origins. So it's going to be a pretty long video just because there is quite a number of changes. Having said that, it's good to have a lot of changes, and I do quite like this balance patch. So let's just go into what is up with this balance patch. So TLDR is here, but I'll probably leave it until the end and see how it goes. And yeah, let's just jump right into the game mechanic first. So for game mechanic, they have some new keywords. Detect and Purify are basically, well, they're just simplifying things. Detect already kind of exists. Remove a random secret. Purify, exile a curse card. So basically removing a curse card. Interestingly, Purify you can see right in a particular order. So you actually exile a curse card first from the draw pile, and then from your hand, and then from your discard in that order. So prioritizing the draw pile first, and then hand, and then discard pile. To be honest, not sure why hand matters, but yeah, I wish hand would be at the end, but is what it is. Okay, so Fade is a new one, so this is worth talking about is because it says when your turn ends, if this card is in your hand, exile, right? So instead of banish, it exile. So meaning it doesn't contribute to Topaz and stuff like that. It doesn't contribute to the banish count, so which is very significant. And you'll see later is because the curse cards are now mostly fade as opposed to being banished. So that means if you put curse card into your opponent's deck and then they draw it, it won't contribute to Topaz damage, basically. Okay, then in terms of Blood Moon, there's a bit of change as well. And the main change really is that instead of, like the max HP going down, the current HP actually goes down depending on the basically the percentage HP. So it basically maintains a ratio of current to max HP. In a way, it actually kind of buffs, the poison and stuff like that, just because the HP does decrease quite a bit quicker. So, but otherwise, I would say not that much of a change. It's still that 441 HP threshold and stuff like that. But we'll see how that changes things. I do quite like this a bit more just because then the early damage actually kind of matters just because, yeah, it does contribute to some decrease in the HP at the end game. Okay, let's move on because there's a lot to go through. Of course, if you want a more detailed explanation, check out the blog post. I'm just going to read in this video, I'm just going to highlight the main ones. So here, I would say the leaf is really the main one. Of course, bubble is good now that it has the AoE and multi-hits also has a bit of a buff. Similarly, bubble bomb also has this buff for AoE and multi-attacks. Now, feather doesn't really change much, except I guess you need an extra hit to get to I think, right? You need an extra hit in order to get to 20. But anyway, Leaf is really the main one, is because, okay, let's read this. When your turn ends, heal 4 HP per stack. Overheal by Leaf converts to shield. So this is the extra part, right? Before, once you have leaves, if you are full HP, it doesn't really do anything, but now it actually converts to shield, meaning, sometimes your back Axie will just have a lot of shield at the end just because you have the leaves on and they never get used because they never get never get attacks, and so yeah, it'll just become overheal and then turn into shield. Yeah, Death Mark doing pure damage now, not so much in terms of change. Okay, here is the big change. So vulnerable and fragile. Okay, so now vulnerable and fragile is kind of changed to plus 10% damage. So fragile is the bigger one, right? It's just, well, in terms of change, because now it actually acts like a vulnerable, except that it's 10% and then additional 10% when it's shielded, when the opponent is shielded. So it is, well, not an opponent, but the Axie has this debuff. We'll get 10% extra damage when shielded if it's fragile, and for vulnerable is additional 10% when it's not shielded. So, and these things stack as well, meaning you can have like 30% basically if you're fragile and vulnerable. The other ones that are good is, I would say, weak. Weak is pretty good also now, because it actually become the new fragile with minus 20% shield. Yeah, so that I think could be quite good against sustain as well. So now basically it's weak is good against aggro and sustain. So yeah, I think it's a good change. And then for doubt, it's also very important one as well. So receive less, well, 25% less heal and shield, right? So note that it's shield as well. Oh, so yeah, do note that for weak is grant shield decrease. This one is receives shield decrease. So this is quite significant. Uh, okay, and I think the key part is right here. HP loss increased by plus 25%. So when they say HP loss, they mean from bleed or poison, that kind of thing. So this is going to be very strong for poison and bleed builds. And even Jinx. I think Jinx also counts as well. Uh, so yeah, doubt is also going to be pretty significant. And okay, and then the final one that I want to talk about in terms of status effect is this new turnip rocket that they've changed. And basically now turnip, well, they changed the turnip card to a 20 heal plus 20 shield card, and that applies turnip rocket. And the turnip rocket says deals damage to a random enemy equals to half of turnip's total stats. So meaning base level 50, total stat, you'll do 25 every turn ends, and it does it for 4 turns because turnip applies turnip rocket for 4 turns. Basically, yeah, and it's every turn, right? So it's your turn and the enemy's turn as well. So effectively, it will do 100 damage at the base level, and of course, you can buff this with charm as well, and that could be a lot of damage. So I would say, yeah, turnip becoming an actual good card, I would say. Okay, then in terms of two cards, yeah, now Pure Water, Lumber Shield changed to 10. Not much there to say. These ones are actually more important, I would say, especially Forest Breath now. Um, yeah, becoming a zero cost card. So now it's basically a zero cost, cleanse all the allies, and it could potentially apply sleep for 3 turns. So this is very strong, I think. And Forest Breath now buffed to plus 20. I think it could still, now I think it could be pretty good, but yeah, I still don't know which archetype this can fit in with the Rise and Rune, but it is looking quite strong. So we'll see whether there'll be some new archetypes that uses Rise and Rune because of the new change. And then for Venom Burst, now it changed to 2 energy cost, so it's more flexible to use because you can use another card, cards, more energy with different cards now. But the downside is that it deals 5 as opposed to 8 pure damage per poison, so meaning you might not be able to burst down a particular Axie, so that is actually the downside. So not sure if it's a good thing or bad thing. I feel like it's more like a bad thing than a good thing, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't play poison that much. But I do feel like being able to burst down a particular Axie could be pretty strong. But of course, it depends on the meta and depends on the team. Okay, so then going to the curse card. For the curse cards, you can see now most of them change to fade as opposed to banish. So that's pretty good because, yeah, basically they don't contribute to Topaz anymore. I think that's the main part. Okay, so the other main change is really that burn go from 8 to 12 HP. I'm not sure how significant it is, to be honest, but yeah, I don't think it's too significant because hot butt teams tend to be more defensive, so the damage doesn't really matter too much. But with the change of the Blood Moon mechanic, maybe this could add up. So who knows? Let's see. Yeah. Okay, so let's get to the cards. So in terms of the cards, I would say the ones to highlight are actually Sleepless and Gyro because they apply Fragile and Vulnerable, and now they apply for 3 turns. Okay, so that is very significant because now it's basically like a little piece now, and with Fragile being changed as well. So yeah, I can see this like being definitely a lot better than before, and it's basically a better version of Little Piece now because Little Piece is also nerfed, as you'll see later. So okay, so these are the 2 that to look out for. And in terms of here, Babylonia also changed to 3 vulnerable turns. And then the other one I think is Tiny Fan now changed to 500 as opposed to 400. Of course, definitely makes it a lot better. Then you can just one shot Axis as opposed to before where you have to add a bit of damage to one shot. So definitely a good change. Okay, then here really not much to say. Goldfish a bit of a nerf, so which could make it quite a bit worse, to be honest, depending on the team. Of course, if you always have two skill card in hand, it doesn't matter. But now, if you don't have two skill card, you only have one skill card in hand, then you only gain one energy fragment, and as you will see later, why energy fragment is more important now. Yeah. Okay. So, the other change is the sponge going to two again. Similar to Venom Burst, is more flexible, but also it only convert up to three bubbles as opposed to four before. But for Sponge, I think it could be a good thing just because the change, like from three to four is sure, is a bit, but it allows you to play another card as opposed to converting all three. Yeah, so all three energy into Sponge. So I think it can work. Okay, and here, okay, the big one is Rancho. Rancho now applies three vulnerable. So this again is basically similar to Grandma's Fan in the early days. It's yeah, I think it's very strong. Yeah, this one I think will fit especially in AOE, but also just in general. I think just because being able to apply three vulnerable, basically like 2 turns where you can just attack with vulnerable, I think is pretty strong. Having said that, vulnerable did get a bit of nerf, so like maybe that keep it in check, but I do feel like AoE is definitely coming back. Okay, in terms of beast, here you can see little piece changed to three. To be honest, the effect is not that much. It's still like the two of your turn, but of course, when you stack, so instead of having 8 turns, then it just becomes 6 turns. But usually, if you have 8 turns of vulnerable, that Axie is probably dead anyway. So I don't think it's too significant. Similar for Axie Kiss. I think Axie Kiss might be more significant because changing it to three means this, like if you stack two of those, then it only becomes 6 turns as opposed to 8 turns. Yeah, in terms of puppy and confident, a bit of a small buff where now you have a small heal and you can put some healing charms on. Okay, so here is getting into the interesting stuff, really, I think. So Innocent Lamb is really the big one here. Innocent Lamb now, well, it doesn't really change that much except the first two words. It says, okay, if I zoom in here, next turn. Okay, so next turn, add a copy of this Axie's other skill or secret cards to your hand, then banish. So basically, yes, you don't get it right away. So that is the big, big, big change. And that definitely slows down a bit. And also, you have to be quite strategic in terms of when you play Innocent Lamb, and you have to predict, okay, next turn I want a certain card, then you play it. Because before, you can always just keep the Innocent Lamb and then just play it on demand basically, but now you really have to plan ahead. So this definitely tunes down the power level quite a bit. So yeah, it is quite significant. For example, let's say if you draw the Innocent Lamb, you want to turn it into an ant or a cattail. You can't do it in that turn. You have to, the taunt will have to wait until next turn, and that might be too late. So that definitely changes the dynamic quite a bit. The other thing I should talk about is the puppy. Now actually changed into an attack card and heals, and AoE heals as well, 20% of the attack. So I think this is now a pretty good card, especially against Jinx, in an aggro kind of thing, because it does have Purify 2, meaning remove 2 curse card, but also now it can deal damage, so that's definitely very significant. Okay. Then here, okay, the main one I want to talk about is Steel Blade, but Poke now changed to target the lowest enemy, so it's definitely a lot more consistent. So I think this is a good change. But I think the biggest one is definitely Dual Blade here, adding the Doubt. Okay, so remember Doubt actually now changed to, okay, let me just scroll up here, then remind myself as well the exact wording here. Okay, for Doubt, right, is receive 25% less heal and shield, but the key part is HP loss increased by plus 25%. So HP loss includes the bleed as well, and gracious wound, of course. Right, so that just means, yeah, now the opponent is going to take a lot more bleed and gracious wound damage from the Dual Blade. And you will see the Dual Blade is not the only card has this effect now. Okay, so that's why I think this bleed, yeah, and maybe even bleed poison kind of hybrid kind of team could be very strong moving forward. Okay, okay, then the next one, the next big one is Cottontail. And you can see the main change here is maybe it's a bit too small to see still is consumes up to 8 energy fragments. Okay, so yeah, if 8 are consumed, gain 1 energy. So basically now instead of 7, you get to 8, and that is again quite significant because before, for player 2, you don't have to ramp, and then you can play a Cottontail naturally, I guess, in turn in your round 3, right? But now you can't do it, and so that definitely changes the dynamic. And the other big impact, of course, is that you can't have the double Cottontail perch stuff anymore with like 14 fragments now because you need 16. And so yeah, that kind of shuts down that particular strategy as well. So definitely it'll be interesting to see how people will adjust to it, meaning will they play more ramp so that they get to Cottontail earlier, or in general the meta might just be a bit slower just because the Cottontail turn might be delayed by 1 round. Okay, in terms of bird, not much to say really. Unfortunately, not a lot of change, which yeah, I'm really quite disappointed in that way, just because bird really needs some love. Because last season already not really seeing much play, and this season also probably not going to see much play. I mean. Hungry Bird is one that could see play quite a lot, and it got nerfed now. Steel is 10 HP as opposed to I think 15 or 20. I think I forgot, but yeah, definitely got nerfed. Um, yeah, I mean the weak stuff has changed, so that could be a slight buff there. I think the biggest one for Bird is this one for sure, Cupid. So Cupid now becomes an AoE, and it's an AoE weak. So AoE weak, yeah, I think it could be pretty strong because first of all, it decreases the damage from an opponent, but it also decreases the shield as well now. Decreases the shield granted by that Axie, so that means it might give AoE one more way of dealing with sustain now that it can effectively put the old fragile effect on. So yeah, so I think that's probably gonna compete with like Trifeather and like Buzz for the back slot in AoE. Okay, Bug. Okay, for Bug, biggest change of course, Square Teeth, right? It was just way too strong. Now it's 0 cost still, but it's 15 damage. And I think the key is also here, it consumes up to 50. So instead of 100, it can only consume 50 shield and then deal the damage. So basically, the maximum is 65. Of course, you can use the charm to buff this a bit more, but the main effect of like only being able to consume 50 means, yeah, it's just scaled down that's quite a bit. So it's usually going to be like a 0 cost 65 kind of card, as opposed to a 0 cost like 100 something plus damage kind of card. Still a good card, I would say, because it's still a free 60 something damage, but still definitely not as good as before. So I think now it becomes fairer, but we'll see, we'll see. And the other one that I want to talk about is ear breathing, actually kind of a reworked because it used to be 2 energy, now it's 1. And then it's another kind of hybrid card where it's an attack card, but then it gains shield equals to its attack. So if you buff this using a charm, buff the attack, then it also will buff the shield as well. So the charm buff basically is kind of double up. But the downside of this is that of this change really is that it only adds 1 goo now, as opposed to like potentially can add 3 for 2 energy. Now it will just only put 1, so I'm not sure if it's good enough, but let's see. Because there are other goo stuff that's changed as well. Okay, here, main one, leaf bug buff from 55 to 70, and I think that's very significant. I think 70, because I already feel that leaf bug is a pretty good card already with the cocoon, so I think cocoon might see more play, at least more experimentation, especially with the change of leaf bug. Okay, and then we see Sando. Sando is also quite good now with 2 energy, 130. That's base power, but of course, on target with debuffs plus 50% more. That just means, yeah, it's gonna deal like 200 plus damage basically. Yeah, that is, I would say, pretty strong, especially if you have vulnerable as well. That's, yeah. Well, now vulnerable or fragile, depending on, opponent have shield or not. And yeah, then that could be pretty good. Okay, and then finally, I guess for bug is the Thorny Caterpillar, and this change definitely potentially enables goo kind of deck, because now it's a one cost card. Because two cost card was very hard to use. Now it's only one cost, and yeah, 60, but then bonus 10 damage per goo in the enemy deck. The key is that now you can run multiple Thorny Caterpillar, and then you can play multiple in the same turn, and that means like you can scale the goo buff quite a bit more. So imagine you have like 10 goo in the opponent's deck. This will deal 160, and if you play like two of these, it'll be like 300 something damage already, which is 2 energy. So yeah, this can, like, definitely is an enabler for goo deck if goo deck actually gonna take off. So yeah, goo deck definitely has to have this card, I think. Okay, for plants, I would say the biggest change, cucumber slice, not that much of a change actually, but it's worth talking about is because, first of all, base 20 now, the cap is, I mean, still the same in the sense that 60 is the cap, but of course now the ramp is faster basically in terms of the heal. But the key actually, I think I'll probably leave it until I talk about the runes, just because I think that is like what enables cucumber slice to be good. So I'll leave it for now. Confusion also changed to another hybrid card. Now it heals 35, but also deal damage equals to the heal stat. Yeah, so again, I think it's pretty good is because you can buff this to like maybe 40 something, right? And then it will be like heal 40 something and then deal 40 something damage as well. So I think the problem always with this hybrid card is that sometimes you just want to deal damage. Sometimes you just want to heal. Of course, dealing damage is good, but yeah, so it's a bit of a tricky, spot. But in terms of effects per energy, it's definitely good. But of course, sometimes you just want to pick up the KO as opposed to healing. So that's the downside. Okay, then here, Leafy got a bit of a nerf. Um, and well, Zigzag kind of got a buff because Fragile's changed to I would say, probably better effect. But Lotus is the one that's definitely the one that should be worth mentioning now, going to 70. And now I think it's like strong enough that it could be used to go against Jinx, especially with the nerf of Innocent Lamb as well. Then like maybe Lotus can actually fight for a slot. Yeah, especially against Jinx. Now that is a 70 shield, then it basically is like a normal shield, but then removing 3 curse card is very, very good against Jinx. Okay, and then here, Turnip I already talked about. Yeah, so I think it is going to be very good. I'm pretty sure now a lot of people are just filtering out for Turnip. And actually, Carrot is also could be very good, but this one is a bit more tricky to use. So it kind of got reworked as well, and it says now plus 1 energy fragment, so that's still the same. But the key part here is whenever healed by more than or equal to 5 HP by an ally, then carrots get plus 5 attack, and it capped to 90 bonus attack. So this could go pretty crazy. Of course, it will take what about is it no 16, 18 or something? So it'll take quite a while, like 18 times to get to the cap, but the cap is 150. And do note that the tools card don't count, leaves don't count as well. So it has to be healed by an ally, meaning it has to be like a card, or I think the charms and also runes as well. So the immediate one that I can think of is things like Moonlight Thief and of course Prehistoric Armor, Gaia as well, of course. So yeah, I can imagine this could scale a bit, but the problem is that it has to heal. right, has to heal by at least 5 HP, right? So that meaning this actually has to take damage and then get healed. So that's why this is very tricky to scale it up. But I think if prehistoric armor works, then I do think it's pretty good. But it's just a bit weird where this plant card only works in a good reptile. Yeah, a reptile rune, but maybe I'm just missing something. There might be like some other ways in which you can buff this, but I guess cucumber slice kind of contribute to this as well. But yeah, this will be like require a lot of healing, and then it's kind of like a finisher, similar to like a tiny dino kind of thing, but it doesn't have retain. But it does have like a base level. Gaining one energy fragment is already pretty good, so maybe it's good enough to see play, especially in prehistoric armor. So yeah, watch out for this one. Okay, in terms of reptile, yeah, big one of course, Topaz now changed to 15. So I must say, still, this requires another 1 or 2 cards to get to like the cap really. So it's like the Nemo tail hasn't really changed. Innocent Lamb has changed, so that slows down a bit. But I don't know. I think I will still see some Topaz, but definitely power level has gone down. Toothless Bite going to 3 death mark I think is good. Yeah, it just makes it a bit stronger. Okay, and then the one that's worth mentioning is Side Barb. So Side Barb now deals pure damage, so that's a plus already, right? Especially against like stuff with shield. So now it deals pure damage, but also applies 5 poison when consuming the spike. So instead of 4. So I can see that maybe people will start shifting to playing maybe like one side barb or just more side barbs so that maybe it's just more aggro. So I'm not sure whether it's good enough to replace this. The ear card is called a small frill. Yeah, small frill. I'm not sure, but I think definitely will be some experimentation on this. Okay, then for Uncle is another goo, I guess, enabling card. And it's a hybrid card. It deals damage but also shield. So it deals damage equal to the shield stats. Yeah, I think if you run a goo then like goo synergy, then I think this could be pretty good. Allows you to survive a bit, also deal a bit of damage. So in terms of the effect per energy, it could be pretty good if you buff the shield. Yeah, small buff with the tri-spike. Okay, then the other ones I do want to talk about is this Iguana. So this one, similar to Dual Blade, now it has 4 doubt and 1 gracious wound. So it does give you another way to put on gracious wound and doubt. Okay, so that I think this one is gonna be like pretty good just because this gives you more way to put on doubt, and of course you can put it. Doesn't have to be. Of course, having bleed would be good, but even the doubt itself in like a poison build, yeah, could be pretty good before the Mystic era. Of course, once you have the Mystic era, you have the Mystic rune to do the doubt, but now, yeah, before that, yeah, you have more ways to put in doubt is also good. Tiny Dino ramp up a bit faster, not so much in terms of significance, I feel. Yeah. Okay, all right, so that is pretty much it in terms of the cards. I do feel like I'm missing one. Yeah, I'm missing one of them. Sorry, so let me just go scroll back up. Maybe I'm. Uh, yes, okay, yeah, this is the one that I missed. Yeah, because I remember, right, there's another way in which you can put Doubt and Griffith Swoon, and that is Scarab. Okay, so there's another way. So there's one tail, right, and then one back, and then one horn that does the same thing now. And it just gives you more ways in which you can put on Griffith Swoon and Doubt, and that basically just increases the consistency of the strategy. Yeah, so I think that, yeah, that Doubt, Griffith Swoon, Bleed, plus maybe even Poison could work out pretty well. Okay, so in terms of the rune changes, big one, of course, Nut Hunter, going back to, I guess, how I think should be, which is that this Axie is not cracker cards deals 10 as opposed to like any. So now it only works on that Axie, so that's like limits it by a lot more. But I mean, this is I feel like that's how it should be for a starter card. It shouldn't really be something that you can just slap on to any Axie and buff. You know, even in the epic or even mystic era, right? So yeah, so that's the big change. And so now indirectly it nerfed Glorious Main as well. Okay, here Blunt Teeth is worth mentioning because now the attack deals only like minus 10%, and because of the nerf with this Cottontail, the energy fragment could be quite important. So yeah, we might see this getting played. And the other one is Poison Touch. So Poison does get a lot of love in this patch, I do feel, but for this buff of minus 1.5 damage taken per poison that's supposed to 1% means like you just take a lot less damage early game basically. You need fewer poison stacks to get to this the max damage reduction. So yeah, definitely very strong. Okay, here energy shot change as well. It's quite a big buff. Now create an energy burst, deals 30 AoE and also heals 30. So yeah, definitely a big change. Yeah, especially with changes with the Cottontail, maybe more. Yeah, more teams might go for the energy burst as opposed to using Cottontail, just because Cottontail might be delayed by one turn anyway, and if you just you know ramp for another turn or two, you already get to the energy burst anyway. So yeah, maybe more like some teams that are less about aggroing down opponent might actually go with energy burst, and energy shot might be useful. It has already been used in Heart of Ocean kind of deck, but I maybe it will see more play. Okay, Energy Guru also a bit of a buff. Now every turn gains fragment again with the change of Cottontail. I think this could be quite significant, especially in yeah, in the rare era, being able to ramp and deal more damage early on could be pretty good. Fate Maker may finally see play, now changed from 10 to 15%. But let's see, yeah. I haven't really seen play last season, but maybe this season it could see some small play, but I don't think it will see that much play. Glorious Main now go from 10 to 8%. With the nerf, with the Nut Hunter, I do feel like it might be a bit too weak. Yeah, we shall see because I think the season before with 7% nobody plays it. With Nut Hunter 10%, then it becomes very good. Without Nut Hunter, not sure. Yeah, especially only 8%. Okay, Venom Master. Now, they change the cards, apply 2 poisons per energy spent. So it's any cards. And I think the poison is going to be very strong. There's just so many ways to add extra poison. Now, every time you play a card, then you put a poison. So any cards, meaning zero cost card as well, like Gecko and stuff, also give you 2 poison. Oh, actually, no, sorry. Per energy spent. Okay, all right. At least it's per energy spent. But still, like playing like the normal poison cards or just shield. Even if you play shield, you put 2 poisons. Yeah, it adds up basically. I think it adds up. Adaptive program nerf from 25 to 15% shield receive. Still, of course, it's a significant nerf because then some teams can, well, especially aggro, can actually aggro it down a lot easier now that it receives less shield. But still, I mean, still people will probably still play it just because of the energy fragment gain as before. Yeah, so but the win rate probably will decrease just because the power level has kind of gone down in terms of the shield received. Okay, Heaven's Echo. Yeah, I don't think that's much of a change here. Okay, Malediction going to 20%. Now it's really quite a lot, like 20% more damage and 20% less damage taken, right? If opponent has debuff. And I think it could push it to C players because 20% is quite a lot and it's quite tanky now. Yeah, and debuff I think will be quite popular also. So yeah, definitely we'll see some play, I'm pretty sure. Okay, Bloodlust now going to 21 HP steel for single attack, and multi-hit AoE is 7 HP per hit. So of course it's very strong. Basically it's a 42 HP swing every single attack, and so if you do 3 single attacks, it will be already that 100 something. Yeah, so it is strong, but okay, the big but is that it is a mystic. Is it good enough against other mystic? Is this fast enough? Does the heal even matter? So that's the questions that I have. So I don't know what's the good number. I assume it might see some play, but I don't think it is like that broken still. So yeah, well, compared to the next one is Last Stand. I think it's still very broken, even though now it's nerfed to 30% as opposed to 40%. It was 50%, but to be honest, even if it's 0%, I think it's still going to see a lot of players because Immortal is still so good with the cleanse as well. Yeah, it's basically allowing you to survive for one more turn. Yeah, even if it is 0%, I think it will still see play. Okay, then with Brutal Claw, not much has changed. Just that it deals pure damage here, I think. Metamorphosis, right? They changed it to 8% from 7%, so they kind of buffed it even. So at the end of last season, we see some experimentation, but of course now with Innocent Lamb nerf, maybe that kind of counteracts it, but still, I can imagine people will still play with Metamorphosis, yeah, with the double teal shell stuff, and teal shells never got changed as well, so that is something to note. So yeah, that combo still exists basically. Promising Glare, actually not much change. Okay, Glare and Protect. Okay, finally. Glare and Protect changed from 60 shield to 45 shield. Of course, it is significant. So, yeah, but still, it's still very good. The draw is still very good. Of course, the shield is less now. Yeah, coupling with the nerf with the square teeth, and of course, it will be less damage, of course, but still, I can imagine it will still see play just because, yeah, 15 shield every 2 turns. Yeah, it's a small nerf. Let's put it that way. Okay, the healing pulse. This one is actually a big one, even though it doesn't really change that much. The only change really is that it works with summons, and actually this was the case when it very first when it first came out, uh, but it never. I mean, they quickly changed it to uh, without summons, I think, when the season actually started. So now it basically changed back to the original, I feel, and it's very good. I think I kind of tested it before it got changed, and now, okay, now is the time where I talk about cucumber slice, right? Where imagine you have like you just put some summons, you have some summons, you cucumber slice with like 60 yeah, heals, and of course you overheal the summons, it overheals your Axies as well, and yeah, it can just basically deal massive damage with a lot of shield as well. So I do see like there's some combo with summons and the cucumber slice with this. And also the other thing is that of course you can play a summon and play a heal on the summon to basically shield and deal damage because the summon will guarantee to have max HP when you summon it. So that's another kind of combo. Even though if you don't have AoE shield, sorry, AoE heal, just a single heal will also be doing quite a bit of damage. Okay, regenerator, I think it's pretty clean. Now it just changed to heal 10% and cleanse 1. So definitely feels better now because it just doesn't hard counter poison that much anymore. So yeah, still counters it a bit, but not like it just removes the poison completely, or even bleed. Right. So I think it's a good change. Okay, here finally. Okay, so Celestial Might. It was 25%. I thought it's pretty good. Nobody played it. Never see play. Now they changed it to 35%. I think it is going to be very good, especially for aggro. So let's see. I think it come on, like 35 should see play, right? But maybe I'm wrong. Okay, for Holy Prayer, it is a nice change. It's very interesting. Now it says ally actually gain 10% stat, so that's the base. All right, so the base is that all ally actually will get 10% stat. And it says +5 stats while there are curse card in your deck. So meaning now it's actually better against curse and it's worse against non-curse teams. Yeah, so it's basically like attack against curse. Even if it's like you're playing against not curse teams, then you have 10%, which is, to be honest, not that great. But if you play against curse, then yeah, then this is more significant. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's more fairer now. Maybe it's just not as good, but it's still Purify 1, so I think it's still good against Jinx, and I can see that Jinx is still going to be quite a big thing. Maybe even Hot Butt, maybe even Goo, so yeah. Okay, finally, I think Soul Eater. Okay, Soul Eater, big change. Now it says when your turn starts, allied axes lose. Okay, allied axes lose 6 HP. So meaning all allied axes lose 6. Sorry, not 6 HP, 6% HP. So imagine you have 400 HP, then it will basically be about what? 24 HP. So 20 odd HP for every axis. It's not that much to be honest. Of course, every turn you lose effectively what 72 HP, but um, I can imagine it can go pretty well with heals, with leaves especially. Leaves is a very good one. Or just AoE heals and think about carrots as well. So now it gives you a way of damaging your Axie and then you can heal it back up, that kind of thing. So there are a lot more possibilities compared to before. So I can see that definitely there'll be some experimentation with this, and I could see that there'll be someone who will make this work. Okay, so let's just finish off with the charms, and now these tech charms becomes 3 PP as opposed to 5, which is good. Right? It fits in easier, and also Bean's Blessing can be applied on attacks, heals, and shield now as opposed to just attack. So yeah, I think it's a good change also. So attacks can purify as well now. Yeah, definitely like go against Jinx for sure. And then some of these, okay, so I think it's worth mentioning the Bubble Paste, the Mask of Frenzy, Feather Fan, and Leafy Pot now applies to all ally Axie, not just other ally Axie, so I think that's a very, very good change. I'm pretty sure now these will see more play, even though these already see play, but now it's just stronger, and I think it's just nice. So it's a good change. And here, some small changes. I don't think I'll go through everything. The main ones I want to talk about is Jinx. Not really just Jinx and Lazy Snail, these things. Minus 15% now. So definitely makes it worse, but still, it's still very strong, I must say, even though it's a bit worse. Okay, the other one, Mantis Dagger. This one is a big one. Now, it makes it more consistent because it discard one random cards from enemy hand or draw pile in that order, meaning it will prioritize hand first. So it makes it a lot more consistent in disrupting the opponent's hand. And if the opponent doesn't have anything, it will still discard draw pile. So yeah, that's why this Meta Snagger, I think, is going to see a lot of play. Even though already now you see a lot of play, and next season is going to be even more. Which can be very annoying to play against, but it is what it is. And finally, the Glove of Infection poison is already very strong. Now, minus 10% stat, to be honest, I don't think it's that much of a deal, just because usually the debuff cards are not that strong in terms of base stat anyway, but it is something, I guess. And yeah, that is pretty much it. Okay, in conclusion, I'll just say that I actually quite like the balance changes overall, and because I do feel like it will shake up the meta, it changes quite a bit in terms of like the main archetype, especially Topaz and Square Teeth, that kind of thing. And of course, Cottontail also, right? Being used so much and changing those basically shake up how people play the game. So and that's always good, right? You don't want to just go into next season, play the same team, play the same way, So it's always good. And the changes are small enough that it's not like overwhelming. So that's another thing, right? Is that it's not like season 2 where, yes, everything has changed. Now it's just like, okay, the existing archetypes are still there. This is small changes you can still feel, and like how things should go, and also, maybe there are some new archetypes. So that's the third point there, right? There could be some, let's say Goo, for example, might see play now, just because before it was pretty weak. Now perhaps it could, hopefully get somewhere up there. But of course, it's still looking quite rough, but maybe. Yes, because of the changes in the Thorny Caterpillar, maybe it could be good enough. Now, of course, the changes in some of the runes as well. So Soul Eater is the one that I'm going to highlight, just because that change could be like very game changing in the sense that like it really allows that rune to be useful in some kind of deck. Yeah, so yeah, definitely see that Origins is moving in a good direction, more balanced, hopefully, of course, and then of course, then more diversity in the meta, and then of course it'll be a better player experience. So, yep, that's it for this video, and yeah, have fun theory crafting, and I'll see you in the next video.